How do you act normal when you know they don't want you around? It's day 4 of the trip, and I haven't said a word in hours. Not because I'm mad, not because I'm sulking, just because there's no space for me in the noise they call family. 12 of us packed into 2 vans. Everyone laughing, yelling over playlists, cracking jokes I was never meant to understand. I'm just here. I pass snacks, offer the front seat, fold the blankets. And still I'm the one they side-eye when something goes wrong. You're so sensitive. Lighten up. Smile for once, Tessa. Bailey, my half-sister, makes it worse. Always with the camera. Always performing for strangers on the internet, while I fade quietly into the seat behind her. The Utah sun is brutal, the desert flat and endless. We stop at a rest area, one of those bleak concrete buildings with a soda machine and 2 flickering bathroom stalls. I tell them I'm going in. No one responds. When I come out, the lot is empty. I blink, half expecting the vans to be around the side or someone to pop out yelling, "Gotcha!" But there's nothing. Just tire tracks in the gravel and a folded piece of paper taped to the bench by the bathroom door. I already know who wrote it. Bailey's looping curly handwriting spells it out. Let's see if she can handle it. My first instinct is denial. Maybe they had to move the car. Maybe there was an emergency. But no, my backpack is gone. My phone, my water bottle, everything. The air tastes like dust and betrayal. The horizon stretches wide and empty. I sit down on the bench, not because I'm tired, because I don't trust my knees. They left me, not forgotten, not lost, left. And suddenly, I'm 17 in the middle of nowhere with nothing but a note, and the echo of their laughter fading into the heat. What kind of joke leaves you stranded with no water in the desert? The first hour I waited. There's a strange kind of silence in the desert, not quiet exactly. It hums. The wind kicks up grit and tiny pebbles. Somewhere nearby, a buzzard circles. I count the minutes by the shadows inching across the pavement. They'll come back. That's what I told myself. I imagine the van swinging back around Bailey, hanging out the window with her phone still filming. Got you, man, your face. Classic. But the second hour came. Then the third. The sun shifted overhead, baking the bench until I couldn't touch the metal. My throat dried out. The soda machine buzzed behind me, useless without coins. I checked the bathroom. No water, no people, no way to call. That's when it hit me this wasn't a prank. It was a test. Let's see if she can handle it. Handle what exactly? Heatstroke abandonment. I wasn't even surprised. Not really. Bailey once locked me out of our Airbnb in the mountains overnight, while the others pretended they didn't hear me knock. Another time, she filmed me crying and posted it with a laughing emoji caption. My mother always said, "Don't be dramatic, Tessa. You know Bailey doesn't mean harm." I curled under the only shade I could find beneath a warped plank overhang where the air still moved. Dust stuck to my skin. My stomach ached from hunger, but worse was the feeling that this was supposed to be funny to them. A group joke, a family game. Eventually, I stopped watching the road. I stopped waiting. I thought about what I'd do if they never came back, not just for now, but ever. And for the first time, I didn't feel panic. I felt a strange, cold clarity. If I make it out of this, I'm not going home. There's a power in saying that, even if you're just whispering it to a stretch of sand and scrubby bushes. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I laid down, head on my rolled-up hoodie, and stared at the clouds like they belonged more to me than the people who shared my blood. If this was their joke, I was done being the punchline. How far can you walk before you stop expecting rescue? By the time the sky started cooling into pale blue, I knew I couldn't spend the night here. I hadn't seen a car in hours, and I wasn't sure which direction the van had gone. The only thing I had was instinct and legs that still worked. So I walked. Every crunch of gravel under my sneakers sounded louder than it should. I passed empty signs riddled with bullet holes, a dried-up creek bed, and a shredded flannel shirt stuck in a barbed wire fence. It could have been 20 minutes or 2 hours. Time stretched in strange ways when there were no distractions, just sun silence and your own thoughts. My throat burned. My lips cracked. I whispered things to myself to stay focused. Left foot, right foot, find a road, find a road. I didn't have a plan. I just followed the sun west, hoping it might lead me to a road, a town, a person, anything. Then, like a mirage, I saw it, a 2-lane highway cutting through the scrubland. A single truck rolled toward me in the distance. I waved both arms, terrified it might not stop. But it did. The driver, gray-bearded, cautious, rolled down the window just a crack. "You all right, kid?" I tried to nod, but I must have looked like hell. Dirt streaked across my arm shirt, soaked in sweat, mouth too dry to speak. "I won't hurt you," I croaked out. "I just need help." He studied me for a long moment before unlocking the passenger door. "Hop in. Name's Hank." I got water. I climbed in and drank half the bottle before I remembered to say thank you. He asked if I needed to call my parents. That's when I froze. I didn't want to explain, didn't want to cry or sound like some runaway kid in a Lifetime movie. So I said the only true thing I could: I need to call June, my aunt. I barely remembered her, my dad's sister, who'd moved out to Oregon before I turned 10. But I remembered her voice on an old voicemail. Soft, kind, nothing like the others. Hank handed me his phone and pulled back onto the highway. "Whatever happened to you," he said, "you're not going back, are you?" I looked out the window at the flat, endless land behind me. "No," I said. "I'm not." "Is it really peace, or just the absence of harm?" June pulled up in a dusty green Subaru, hair in a loose braid face. Older than I remembered, but eyes just as kind. She didn't ask too many questions, just wrapped me in a hug that smelled like lavender and pine, then led me to the passenger seat. The drive from the tiny bus depot to her cabin took 2 hours. Through winding roads, forest walls rising on either side, and a foggy silence between us that neither of us seemed eager to fill. She offered me trail mix and a blanket. I ate slowly every chew, reminding me I hadn't had a real meal in over a day. When we arrived, the cabin looked like something from a forgotten postcard. Mossy roof, swinging porch bench, a single light glowing in the kitchen window. No Wi-Fi, no screaming, no cameras, just stillness. June showed me the guest room, handed me a pair of soft flannel pajamas, and said gently, "Sleep. We'll talk when you're ready." I slept for 15 hours. The next few days blurred into a rhythm. I didn't realize my body craved wake with the sun, help June with her herb garden. Eat warm food, go on quiet walks, sit in silence that didn't ask anything of me. I didn't talk much. She didn't press. But the silence wasn't empty. It held space for grief, for fear, for something tender that I couldn't yet name. On the 5th morning, I found an old sketch pad in a drawer. My fingers tingled when I touched it, like they remembered who I used to be before I started shrinking myself to fit into family photos where I never belonged. I started drawing again. At first, just trees and shadows, then faces my own fractured, then whole. One afternoon, I sketched the bathroom rest stop from memory, the bench, the sky, the note. I didn't cry. I just drew. And that night, as I curled up under a hand-stitched quilt in June's spare room, I realized something. This wasn't healing yet, but it was the first place I'd ever been where the silence didn't hurt, where I wasn't bracing for the next insult or eye roll or camera click. Just quiet. And for once, it felt like mine. When you have no past, what kind of future do you build? I never told June the full story. Not at first. She knew enough that I'd been left, that I didn't want to be found, that saying my last name out loud made me flinch. She didn't push. She just made space, and over time that space became the first real thing I'd ever owned. I enrolled in a small community college nearby under my middle name, Tessa Marin. No Langley, no digital paper trail. I got a part-time job at a co-op grocery store, where people smiled with their eyes and didn't ask too many questions. I stocked shelves, rang up bulk grains, and learned the names of every local farmer who delivered in pickup trucks and flannel. I drew in the evenings, sometimes in secret, sometimes not. 3 years in, I met Jonah. He wasn't loud or charming like the people I grew up with. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He fixed cars, brewed his own kombucha, and brought me peach muffins on Tuesdays. When I forgot how to speak, he waited. When I laughed at something stupid, he lit up like I'd handed him a miracle. He never asked why I flinched when people joked about family. He just said, "You don't owe anyone your story, you know." That was the first time I believed it. Over time, I stopped Googling them. I deleted old emails. I blocked every relative I could find. When someone at the co-op asked if I had siblings, I said no. And it didn't feel like a lie. It felt like a boundary. A new country drawn on a map no one else could erase. I moved in with Jonah. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above the repair shop where he worked. I painted the walls moss green and hung string lights that flickered like fireflies. On my 25th birthday, he gave me a fresh leather sketchbook with my initials pressed into the cover, TM. He didn't know that those 2 letters felt like armor, not just initials, a name I chose, a version of me that hadn't been erased. And in the mirror, for the first time in years, I saw someone whole. Not the girl they left, just me. Still standing, still becoming. What if you see the people who left you go viral for searching for you? It started with a message from a girl at the co-op. "Hey, is this you?" Attached to TikTok. 2.1 million views. Caption, "Our daughter went missing 15 years ago. Please help us bring Tessa home." Missing teen, track, family loss. I clicked play. There they were, my mother Bailey, and even my old stepfather sitting on a couch. I recognized all red eyes and shaky voices. Bailey did most of the talking, camera angled just right to show her makeup smudged and heartbroken. She held up an old photo of me. I was 16 in it, half smiling, wearing the yellow jacket they hated. She was always sensitive, Bailey said, voice trembling. We tried to help her, but she just disappeared. We think she might be in danger. A pause. Then a staged wipe of a tear. I stared at the screen, frozen. They were lying. Not just about me being missing. About everything. About who I was, what they did. They were turning my abandonment into content, monetizing my pain like it belonged to them. I felt a strange detachment, like I was watching someone else's life. Some stranger's tragedy getting dunked in filters and hashtags. Then I saw one tiny comment buried under the waves of sympathy. Didn't someone say she was left at a rest stop, followed by another? Wait, I thought Bailey joked about this on her old channel years ago. My fingers shook, but not from fear, from anger. Righteous volcanic anger. For once, not inward, not shame, not self-blame. I took screenshots. Every video, every comment, every fake tear. I saved them like evidence in a trial I hadn't planned on starting, but now couldn't ignore. Later that night, I sat on the floor of our apartment, knees pulled to my chest. Jonah found me like that. I showed him the video without a word. He didn't speak for a long time. Then what do you want to do? I looked up. My voice came quiet but steady. I want them to know I saw it. And that I'm still here, but I'm not coming back. What do you write to people who told the world you ran away? I didn't write it in anger. I wrote it with the same calm I'd found in the trees outside June's cabin, in the slow way Jonah held my hand, when I couldn't speak, in the quiet truth that had taken 15 years to fully form. The letter was short. You didn't lose me. You left me. I survived. Don't contact me again. I printed it on thick white cardstock, the kind used for wedding invitations or important announcements. Folded it into thirds, slipped it into a plain envelope with no return address. Then I drove 4 towns over and dropped it in a mailbox outside a grocery store. Let it arrive without ceremony, no note, no warning, just the truth arriving like a ghost. Then I opened my laptop. I hadn't posted publicly in years, but that night I made a new account anonymous but unmistakable to anyone who had followed my story. I uploaded a thread of photos, the note on the bench, my shoes in the dirt, a screenshot of Bailey's old video from years ago laughing, saying, "We totally left her at a rest stop, LOL." And finally, a side-by-side their viral TikTok. And me now standing tall on the Oregon coast, wind in my hair, no caption needed. Then I wrote, "This is what really happened. Not a disappearance, a decision. Not your lost daughter, your discarded one." And I made it. The post didn't explode right away. It simmered. But the comments grew. People began sharing, comparing timestamps, finding the receipts, digging up the old footage Bailey thought she'd deleted. By morning, it had over 800,000 views. The top comment read, "Imagine leaving someone and they come back with receipts and peace." I didn't respond. I just closed my laptop, took Jonah's hand, and stepped outside. For the first time, I felt weight lift from my spine. Not because the world finally knew the truth, but because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Can the truth actually break the internet? Within a week, everything cracked. Bailey's TikTok account was flooded not with sympathy, but with fury. Old videos resurfaced. People stitched her fake crying clip next to receipts from years ago. The prank videos, the lost sister jokes, the leaked group chat messages she never thought anyone would save. The internet doesn't forget. And this time, it didn't forgive. She posted an apology, heavily edited, tearful, full of words like trauma and misunderstood. But it was too late. Sponsors dropped her. Her merch store closed. A petition circulated online to ban her from monetized platforms. My mother tried a different route, interviews with niche talk shows, playing the grieving matriarch. But under every video, commenters posted quotes from my letter. Someone even tattooed a line from it. "You didn't lose me. You left me." Their family business, an upscale home decor shop, was boycotted. Yelp reviews turned savage. Former employees spoke out about emotional abuse and favoritism. Meanwhile, my post crossed 1 million views. I got interview requests from every outlet you could name: BuzzFeed, The New Yorker, even a morning show producer. I turned them all down, except one. A small podcast called Survivors in Silence sent a handwritten letter to my P.O. box. No pressure, no offers, just a simple message. You control your story. If you ever want to tell it, we'll hold the space. I listened to a few episodes. They weren't sensational. They were honest, careful, human. I said yes. The interview wasn't flashy, just me and a soft-voiced host named Riley in a quiet studio in Portland. I told the story from beginning to end. No edits, no names named unless I chose. Just truth laid bare like sunlight on an old bruise. When it aired, people didn't just listen. They wrote letters, sent art, shared their own stories. Thousands of them. I wasn't the only one left behind as a joke. I wasn't the only daughter erased, because silence was easier. I'd thought going public would burn me, but instead it became a lighthouse. And maybe that's what truth does, not just expose, but illuminate. What if you stopped trying to earn a seat and built your own? With the podcast came more attention than I expected. Interviews, offers, even strangers. Venmoing me money just because. I didn't want fame. I wanted impact. And something more personal. A space I never had when I needed it most. So I built one. With June's help and Jonah's steady hands, I started sketching a plan for a nonprofit, the Second Light Project. A retreat and resource hub for teens and young adults estranged from their families. No forced therapy, no labels. Just a place to rest, connect, and feel human again. We found a property tucked into the Oregon woods, 3 cabins, a fire pit, and a clearing that caught the sunrise like a secret. I used the donation money for the down payment. Local volunteers helped renovate. Jonah rewired the main cabin himself, while June baked enough bread to feed an army. Our first retreat filled in less than a week. They came from all over, some fresh from shelters, others who hadn't spoken to their parents in years. They arrived quiet, suspicious, hunched in their jackets. But by the third night, they were laughing around the fire, sharing poems, playing old songs on battered guitars. Someone painted a mural of a girl walking away from a burning house, not looking back. One attendee, a 17-year-old named Maris, slipped me a note on the last day. It said I thought I was broken. You made me feel unbroken. I cried for the first time in months, not because I was sad, because I finally understood this was never about revenge. It was about reclamation. I wasn't just healing. I was handing out matches and maps, and the table. The one I'd begged to sit at all my life, I didn't need it anymore. I'd built my own longer, wider, made of driftwood and second chances. And every person who came through our doors got a seat. Not because they proved themselves, but because they were still here, still trying, still enough. What does healing look like on paper? The gallery was small, just a reclaimed brick storefront in a sleepy coastal town, where gulls screamed louder than cars. It wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. What mattered was that it was mine, my first solo show. The walls were lined with moments I had once buried: the rest stop bench, the outline of my shadow in desert sand, the cracked tile in June's cabin kitchen, Jonah's hands covered in motor oil. Pieces of a life rebuilt thread by thread. But it was the final sketch that made people stop. A girl on a dirt road alone, walking toward a van that had just driven away. Her face wasn't afraid. It wasn't angry either. It was free, calm. Her shoulders back, one hand tucked in her jacket, the other holding a folded piece of paper. Below it I had written, "Not the girl they left. The woman who walked away." A woman in her 50s stood in front of it for 15 minutes without moving. When she finally did, she just looked at me and whispered, "Thank you. I didn't need to ask why." After the show closed that night, I sat alone in the empty gallery with the lights dimmed. I looked at that final sketch, the one I almost didn't include. I had drawn it 3 years ago, late at night after a storm knocked the power out. I remember the sound of rain and Jonah's snoring and the smell of June's lavender soap drifting down the hallway. I remember thinking, this is peace, and also I survived. The sketch had stayed with me ever since, tucked between notebooks, moved from house to house, never framed until now. I didn't draw it for them, not for Bailey, not for my mother, not for closure or justice or internet applause. I drew it for the 17-year-old girl who waited at that rest stop, wondering if someone would come back for her. And now I wanted her to see it too. So I left the sketch up long after the show ended. I made prints for the retreat center. I sent one to that podcast host, Riley, who now ran workshops with me every other month. And I kept one taped above my desk to remind me sometimes leaving isn't the end. It's the beginning.